Welcome to the webinar, everyone. This is the Coaching to Flourish podcast. I'm your host, John, and today I'm here with Samantha. Samantha, welcome. Welcome to the Coaching to Flourish podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. And just to give everyone a little bit of background, Samantha went through our CTEDU Wellness Coach training course. And a lot of the work that she's done is to foster awareness and forward the momentum of clients in their lives. Samantha works with teen girls and young adult women to tackle their insecurities and take care and control of their personal journeys. You are currently using your platform as the first ever African-American Miss Hawaii to lead the effort to make June 19th or Juneteenth and Independence Day an official remembrance in the state of Hawaii. Samantha, it's really impressive. Welcome to the podcast. Here we are. So,
Thank you.
Looking at all of this, wow. So here you are, doing this work. What's the draw to add coach training to, I guess, your tool set?
Well, I had the time. I think last year I was stuck at home just looking for things to do, and I needed a project, and I just thought life coaching was so interesting. It was something I always thought I would eventually get to. And I thought, well, maybe now's eventually. Why not?
That's awesome. What was the point when, okay, so I have so many questions, like a bajillion, but let's start with your background. So where did you grow up, and what were the key milestones or turning points in your journey?
I grew up in a military family, so I lived all over the world. I was born in Columbus, Georgia, actually, and we lived in the South for a little bit. So when I was little, I had a Southern accent, and then we moved to Spain, and then Japan, and then Hawaii.
That's awesome.
So somewhere in there, I lost the accent, but.
So can you slip back into it? Is it something that you have? Like when you read books or something, do you ever slip back into the accent?
If there's people around that have a Southern accent, it will come out a little bit, but I feel like just living all over, people tell me I have an accent sometimes, but it's like it's been influenced from so many different parts of the world. Who knows what it is?
That's awesome. I was in Dubai once speaking at an event, and there was it's over Thanksgiving, and there were 12 people there, and everyone was for a different country. And the person sitting next to me was a Frenchman who learned English in Scotland. I didn't even know what he was talking about. It was like this wild thing. But the people who grow up in military families, like you have, like there's a thing of where do you consider yourself from? Like where do you find home, and where do you find that for you?
I think for now, home for me is Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Home, when you're in the military, home is where the heart is. And so wherever your family is, wherever that currently is where you lay your head at night, that's what home is. So there were times when we would move and home would be a hotel for 2 months. And that's just kind of what it was, because that's where the family was, and that's where we were sleeping every night.
Wow. I imagine that brings such a resilience and closeness to those family bonds. How does that shape you today, or what impact does it have?
I think it makes me very aware of the differences in cultures and backgrounds that different people have. And it also makes it easier to appreciate those differences, mm-hmm. because I have seen so many different cultures. And even living in Spain, I actually went to an international school where there were people from all over, people who worked at the US embassy or the embassy for, not the kids that went to school with their parents, but you just had kids from all over the world, and you saw how different everybody was, and it gave you a really big appreciation for the differences.
That's awesome. What in your work now, I mean, you're using your platform for, in what ways are you, how are you using your platform now? I mean, this feels like it completely aligns with, your own personal journey.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about awareness. And that's the nice thing with social media is it does give everybody a platform. And I try to use my platform to foster that awareness and just bring attention to things that I think are important. And a lot of that is Juneteenth. I also try to add some life coaching tips and stuff in there and just really give people information that I think is important and I think people should have.
Right. I don't do a lot of social media, but Amois has shown me posts that you've done. And she's like, you have to see this. Look what Samantha's doing. This is so on point. That takes such, I mean, I just have a lot of respect for, people who can, champion like deep work that needs to happen in our culture. As you see it, what are some of the main points? Like what is it that you're hoping will happen? Let's say in the next decade.
With just kind of in general or
Social
things that I'm doing
justice, yeah, your platform, yeah, things like that.
I hope that people are more educated on what's going on. So to me, Juneteenth and getting it recognized is a lot about the education behind it. It's learning our history and understanding how that affects what we're seeing today, and then using that to kind of move forward and learn how to move forward. I think anytime we can help people raise their awareness about what's going on, we just set them up for success because we're giving them skills and tools and the knowledge they need to go out and make a change and make things better.
This is Black History Month, and the United States has a terrible record with racial justice and what's there. Being a white person in a mixed racial marriage, it's interesting to see how, I guess what one word would be like how challenging it is for white people to see what it's like. What would, it gets into uncomfortable territory really quick, but what do you feel like, or what do you think white people need to know the most when it comes to ideas around race?
That's a great question. With some of my pageant sisters last year, I guess, we read White Fragility, and we kind of had a little book club and invited people to join. And that book was so eye-opening because the subtitle is, I think, why it's so hard for white people to talk about race. And it was just so interesting to read because I think it really helps me understand why it is so hard for people, but also how to approach it. And I think the biggest thing is knowing that it's okay to talk about, because so often people think race is this taboo subject and we're just not supposed to bring it up. And when we don't bring it up, we don't grow, we don't learn, you just stay absolutely stagnant. There's no way to move forward. And I think you just have to get comfortable knowing that you're probably not going to get it right on the first time. You're not going to get it right every time. But it's like riding a bike. If you're too afraid to fall, you're never going to learn.
Right.
So you have to just go into it knowing, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I have good intentions and it's okay. And that's fine. Like, you just have to figure it out as you go.
So I feel like it's freeing in the sense that it is like a lot of people feel like, oh, like they don't know which way to go. I mean, it's like this, they don't want to offend anyone, but then it's not also moving the ball forward without having these kind of conversations. So you've also been in pageantry the girls had their volleyball coach was, I think, Miss Washington a couple years ago. And she had the way that she led the team. She talked a lot about confidence, a lot about being able to speak with, clearly, and, just amazing life skills that I feel like pageantry also has this negative stereotype as well, that it's about image and surface. How are you breaking that mold, or how are you mean, imagine a lot of stereotypes for me in pageantry were broken by interacting with this coach and, the way she approached things. What are your thoughts on pageantry, I guess, going into that?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely the stereotypes, and I understand, of course, why people have them. I mean, pageant is short for beauty pageant, so of course you're going to have these thoughts. But I think it's a lot about it's like the final project in the coach training book. The last one is a leadership project. And so much of pageantry is having a platform and having a project. And for Miss USA specifically, the system doesn't exactly care about what your platform is or what your leadership project is. They just care that you have one, because the qualities that you embody and that the skills you learn from having that is what they're looking for. So it's not specific to what did you do, but it's what did you learn? How did you grow from doing whatever it is that you chose to do? Whatever platform you chose to speak on or act upon in your community, what did you learn and how did you grow from that process?
That's exactly it. I mean, that's exactly what education needs to do to change, is to help young people take this leadership role and say, go, like, here's your thing. What was the moment for you that sparked? What was the moment when you stepped into that?
Preparing for Miss Hawaii USA, I joined Toastmasters, which is a public speaking organization, just to practice my public speaking and to get better at the interview and the onstage question. And I just fell so in love with Toastmasters. I loved it so much that then I decided my project was going to be creating a teen Toastmasters. And so I kind of sat down, figured out lessons, made a curriculum, and went out and taught some teen public speaking workshops and interpersonal communication workshops. And every time I was teaching, I was helping kids, but I also was learning more myself.
Right.
And then so when I got on stage and started talking, I had way more confidence. I was more articulate, and I was able to convey a message because I had taken the time to figure out these lessons and how I was going to teach somebody else to do the same.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I love it. I took a couple Toastmasters classes. Did Toastmasters for about a year. I loved it. Some people don't like all the little rules and all the little thank you, all the thank yous and all the things that happen, but I just ate that up. I thought it was the funnest time. Get into it.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's very Robert's Rule of Order, but it applies to so many other things.
What do you see when you're working with young people like that? What do you see as what are the things that, if you could say, these are the top 3 things that young people need to know about public speaking?
I think number 1 is confidence, and then 2 would be connection. So many of them want to be more confident. They maybe don't know how to get there or what that looks like. But if you ask them, so many will say that that's what they want, that's their goal. And I think the barrier is that people don't realize connection will get you there. They think they need to be confident in order to connect with people, but really through connection, you will become more confident. Because you realize it's okay. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You're just having a conversation with somebody and it's fine. The world is not tumbling around you.
Right. It's not like things are falling apart because you said the word too many times or
exactly.
Right.
So you messed up. Okay, move on.
I mean, it goes against a lot of what's happening in education though, where it's like you get a grade and you can't change it. So it's like, we just had this conversation earlier with a number of the trainers where we feel like sometimes in our assessments, we're swimming against a stream of telling people it's okay. Like, you're going to get assessed, but it's okay. You have an infinite number of choices, infinite number of times to get it right. But this feedback loop seems really intense. And I imagine the pageantry world, it's even more intense. Like, what structures have you developed to handle feedback?
I think in pageantry, I score myself. So before I competed for Miss Hawaii USA, I was living in California and I competed there. And I was so close. Made it to the top 3 out of 70 plus people. And I so thought I was going to win. I was standing up there and I was just thinking, oh, I won. I definitely won. And then I didn't. And I was so sad, but I also was like, that was the best pageant performance I have ever done. That was absolutely my best. And in pageantry specifically, it's so subjective. It's somebody else's opinion that decides who's going to have this once in a lifetime experience. So in that sense, I think it's really just about giving yourself that feedback of, okay, what did I do well? If I do want to do this again, what can I work on? Because you can't let somebody's opinion define you. I think you can accept their feedback, but you can't let it define your ability to keep growing or your ability to achieve the next level of success.
That's really, you make it sound so easy to do, but it's so hard. Like
it's definitely hard.
Yeah. Like how, I mean, I imagine it's something that it has to be in the space. Like I imagine you took like your pageantry sisters, you talk about this like openly. I imagine it's a big topic of discussion.
It is. And I've said it so many times, and I will always say it to any pageant girl I meet, because they just want to win so bad and you work so hard. But I really say it's 5 random people who are judging. And if you wouldn't let 5 random people up the street tell you what you're worth or what your ability to be successful is, you can't let these 5 random people tell you, because it's the exact same thing. You don't know them. They don't know you. They got, maybe 5 minutes in a private interview to get to know you, and then your bio, but they don't have a lifetime of knowing you. So I think pageantry is great, but in that sense, I always try to remind people that this is a chance for you to showcase who you are, but this is not defining who you are. Only you get to do that. And I think anytime you approach a situation from the point of view of I'm still learning and I'm going to grow through this, you just give yourself so much freedom.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just struck by the parallels between, any structure where you're putting yourself out there and then you're getting feedback from like self, to coach training, where you're doing the same thing. You're coaching and then you get assessed in this feedback, as tools of personal growth and development. What was the biggest thing you learned about yourself in becoming Miss Hawaii?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I think it showed me more of what I'm interested in. It showed me what I'm capable of, and I think the possibilities really are endless, because here I am going through this legislative process and starting a coalition and doing this whole thing. And 2 years ago, I don't think I ever would have dreamt of doing something like this, or even thought it was possible, or something within my reach. But I think pageantry is great because it really does just open up all these doors, and it forces you to kind of stretch yourself.
That's so awesome. So is it going to happen? Do you think it's going to pass is Juneteenth going to be recognized by Hawaii?
We are working so hard, and I am very hopeful and very confident that we can get this done. I think the hard part is definitely coming up now. I think this week I will probably share on social media. I got to get a bunch of people to call these legislators and tell them, hey, give this a hearing. We need it to have a date, because it's such a long process, but it's kind of in the waiting queue right now. And we just need these 2 people who are in charge to pull the trigger and say, yeah, we're going to put this on the schedule.
That's awesome. Can they be people not from Hawaii? Can they be people not from Hawaii to call? Oh my goodness. All right. We're putting this out. We'll put this out. Totally. Oh, that's CTEDU community. Oh, for sure. Yes. We'll connect with Moise and Jennifer and Ashley, and we'll get it on social. Yeah. And do what we can. That's awesome. I mean, so let's say this goes through, right? Let's say this happens. Hawaii recognizes Juneteenth. What's next?
I don't know. One step at a time. people have asked me if I'm going to try to get it recognized as a national holiday, and I would love to be part of that effort. But I also think that this is such a big undertaking and such a big task that I don't want to lose focus by thinking too far ahead, because I remember when we got the state senator and state representative to sponsor the bills, I thought, oh, we're done. It's going to be so easy from here.
Right.
And I'm realizing, no, there's so many places where this bill could get killed. And so we have to really like stay focused and make sure that I'm putting in the same amount of effort now as I did in the beginning, because I just don't want to underestimate the process or think at any point, oh, it'll be fine. Like it's going to get done. If I drop the ball, who knows, like we might have to wait until next year to try again. It's not like, oh, we'll just try again next week. It would be a whole nother year.
Wow. I imagine there's a lot of resilience involved, but also so much like fulfillment in knowing that your work is making a big difference in people's lives. What's that balance point for you between the deep breaths of, okay, here we go, and the, let's call it the heart elation of, this is deeply fulfilling, meaningful work?
I think I have to set time limits for myself,
Yeah.
because I will sit down, and if I get hyper focused, I will work for hours. I will forget to eat lunch.
Oh, that's awesome.
I won't get up to get water. And I have to just kind of set time limits for myself and say, okay, we're working on it from this time to this time, and then we're going to stop. We're taking a break. We'll pick it up tomorrow, because I do believe in this, and I think it will mean a lot for people. But I also can't lose myself in the process. Or, I mean, I think, I don't know, it's like you want to put so much effort into it, but you also have to be conscious about that effort and make sure you're not overdoing it or spending time on something that isn't actually relevant.
Right. I mean, what you're talking about, that deep work, I feel like is so precious. And I've thought about like how many people hours it takes to move an idea, like how many people hours it took to do anything, like put people in space, or move social movements forward. I mean, it's just enormous sometimes. Like the weight feels really heavy. I've been reading night times, rereading How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. And it's just, I feel like that book is so generous with its ideas, and the even generous to other fields too, where this idea of diversity and inclusivity is not necessarily a sidecar to coach training, but is something that can inform coach training. How do you find, because I mean, it's just the ideas are so robust, and these are topics that are really have like supercharged with emotion. How have you found ideas around diversity and inclusivity make you a stronger coach?
The way I look at it is diversity is the idea, and then inclusivity is the action. So diversity is kind of the idea of being accepting, and then inclusivity is actually putting it into action and making it happen. And to me, I think it's about giving people space and letting them go through their own journey, because everyone's journey is unique. And it's just about letting them feel like they are equal and they are heard and they are seen, and really kind of creating that environment where everybody is on the same playing field. Because right now we're not all on the same playing field, but it's at least lifting people up so they can feel like they are. And then I think sometimes that empowers them to push through the glass ceiling or break barriers that society has maybe put on them.
Right. And looking at the creation of anti-racist policy, and looking at like just the idea of looking at the results as a barometer for the policy put in place, I feel like it's such a powerful exercise. I mean, and I feel like a lot has shifted over these past 6 months. You working in this space, what have you noticed, like in the last couple months, the resonance of your message and your work?
I've definitely noticed a difference. I think when I first was talking about it, the first article that came out in local Hawaii news, some people were supportive, but a lot of people just thought, why is this necessary? We don't have a racism problem in Hawaii, or why is she spending her time doing this? She should be doing something else. And everybody has opinions. And people kept telling me, why are you doing this? You should focus on homelessness. I said, yes, homelessness is a problem. Why don't you focus on it? And I mean, there's so many issues in the world. I can't do all of them, but this is something that I felt was important. And I decided I'm going to dedicate my time to this. But I also had an article come out yesterday and people were more receptive, I felt like, and thought, yeah, this is a good point. They're at least taking the time to read more thoroughly what we're trying to do and why and what that looks like, what it means. They're not just seeing the headline and immediately having a negative opinion.
Right. And I think, I mean, you look at the historical, there's a lot out there to get educated. So if people want to get educated, there's some, like, the resources are endless, really, and what they can look at. And I know Martin Luther King Jr. said something about this idea of people who are sort of lukewarm in their support, and how that's challenging because, like, yeah, they'll go along with it, but then that lukewarmness, it's suffocating in some cases too, because it doesn't allow for big things to happen. It doesn't allow for, like, large support. I feel like that's shifting, but not always. Not, you know what I mean? It feels like it's shifting a little bit, but how do you manage the impatience of the progress with the celebration of the progress? I guess is where the question is.
You really make me think here. Well, I think it really is a journey. It's not going to be an overnight change. And something that I always try to remember is not everyone is seeing the same things. Not everyone is getting the same information. And I think just knowing that helps me be patient and not get frustrated in, why do people have this opinion, or why aren't they on our side? Why are they not agreeing with this? And I think you can see it even if you just are watching the news and you flip back and forth between CNN and Fox. They're so completely different, and they'll tell the same story in a completely different way. And anytime I do this, it just reminds me to be patient and be understanding, because people are not getting the same information. I mean, there's a lot of news stations that are in between, but someone who watches Fox most likely is not watching CNN, and someone who watches CNN is most likely not watching Fox. So the people who are a little more, I don't want to say extreme, but a little more to the sides rather than closer to the middle, they are not usually taking the time to look at the other side or to see it from a different perspective. People who are in the middle, they're a little bit easier to share an opinion with, but somebody who's on the edge of the spectrum, I mean, I think to me, it makes it easier to understand and be patient, because I know why they have the opinion they have, because they're not seeing the same things that I'm seeing. They're not taking the time to look in the middle or try to understand somebody else's point of view.
Yeah, this to me gets back to the ideas around an education system that prizes, knowledge over kindness. And I think as a society, we don't, kindness is often associated with weakness. And that's a problem. And that there's a lack of training around, what they call soft skills. And to me, it's empathy is at the center of that. And it's that this lack of empathy, I think we're just seeing it play out, where people simply can't understand one another, or they don't take the time to understand one another. I imagine the world of pageantry brings a lot of different cultures together all in one spot that just plays out in this. And everyone's talking about their causes and what they're up to. How does that work? Like when you get into is it just, I mean, what's that like in that space?
It's a little awkward. I also competed at Miss Teen USA when I was 17, and that was completely different because one, it wasn't a politically charged year, but as teenagers, we were not necessarily discussing politics. And now, having competed at Miss USA during an election year,
right,
we have one girl from every state plus DC, and we were together on election night.
Wow.
It was awkward. It was definitely awkward because people had very different opinions. And yeah, I think it was definitely a challenge because, I mean, some people just feel very strongly in certain beliefs and they're not willing to compromise. They're not willing to accept differing opinions. And I get it because there was a lot more at stake this past November than just the election. There was a lot more on the ballot. But it's hard because I think we all have our opinions. We all have our beliefs that we're not willing to compromise on. And you don't have to agree with everyone, but I think you can respect the differing opinion and understand why someone does have that opinion. What you want to do with that respect or that understanding is up to you, but you can at least take the time to just understand where they're coming from and why they feel that way.
I feel like that's such a huge internal, like heavy lift to do, like what you're talking about.
Oh, it's a challenge.
Yeah. it's definitely not for the faint of heart. When you do that internal lift, what's the benefit? Like, what do you see as like, what does that lift give you?
I think you're able to see people for their character, and you're able to see them kind of not just on the surface, but internally. So they may have an opinion that you think is absolutely nuts or you don't understand at all, but you know, they're the kind of person who tips their waiter or respects the cleaning staff at a hotel. Like, you can look at other things. You can look at who they actually are, not just where they fall on the political spectrum or how they feel about certain issues.
Mm-hmm. You get to know the people rather than just the caricature of how they're presented. Yeah, I mean, I think it's this kind of, you know, person to person connection that does move things forward. I see it in the corporate world too. The corporate world in the last year has made some pretty significant strides towards boosting awareness. I mean, I wonder too, like how much awareness is affecting the pageantry world as well. Like how much of, like, what are you seeing with that? Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, how are you seeing these last 6 months play out in the pageantry world?
Well, I really loved our last Miss USA. So 2019, which she ended up being Miss USA for like a year and a half because of the pandemic. But she was very outspoken about the Black Lives Matter movement and what it meant, and really using her extremely large platform to help educate people and kind of give people the freedom to talk about it and say, hey, it's okay if you're still learning. It's okay if, you know, you're very experienced in this and you have something to say. Wherever you are, let's talk about it and let's open the conversation. And I think we've definitely seen, because of her being so vocal, we've seen other people feel like they're allowed to be vocal. Because I think formerly in pageantry, people always felt like they had to be neutral. So
Right.
pageant girls, when they would be asked a question, and the onstage questions are always political, everybody would try to be neutral. And these days, that is not the case. These days, have an opinion and back it up is what they tell you.
Wow.
And I love that. I love that it's not just, oh, stand up there and say something nice. It's, no, pick a side and defend it.
Wow. Oh, wow. So where does this go? Like, how do you see it developing, or where do you see, like, what's the next step of evolution in pageantry?
I think we're going to continue to build strong, powerful women with
Mhm.
opinions.
Mhm.
Yeah, people will be threatened, but it's going to be amazing.
I
They're going
see
to stand
it.
up there, they're going to look great, and they're going to knock everybody's socks off with these strong opinions, and I'm going to love it.
That's so awesome. I mean, I feel like, so, Moise and I, we got coach trained before we had little ones, and those little ones are now 13 and 11. So we have two young women in our household who've been raised in a coachy like awareness. And I think they might be watching now. Like, I don't know if they're watching this live or not. Not sure if they're in there. If they are, I guess we'll see. I know she's my 13-year-old's gonna watch this and like immediately want to work with you as a coach. When you work with young people, which we should chat about that. When you work with young people, I imagine like your background in some ways is both intimidating and inspiring. How do they handle that? Like, how do they handle, like you're Miss Hawaii, like here you are working with people, and yet you're extremely approachable, and you have this, this cause that you're working for, and it's working. Like, how do you find that young people interact with that?
I definitely have that those moments sometimes where people maybe are a little intimidated, and I try to immediately meet that with approachability, and we're on the same playing field. I'm just like you. And some of that is the way I show up to coaching sessions. I usually don't show up with full makeup or looking fancy. I'll just be in jeans and a t-shirt, because I want them to feel like we really are on the same level, in the same zone, and we're just there connecting with each other. But in my head, the way I make the distinction is going from aspirational to inspirational, because I think aspirational is, oh, you're so great, I want to be like you. And then inspirational is handing it back with, you could do it too. So it's kind of taking the idea of putting somebody up here and then bringing them down to your level and thinking, okay, we really can like rise together, or you did this journey, I could also have a journey, kind of thing.
That's so awesome. I mean, she's entering that stage where she's like all into Hamilton and really.
I love Hamilton.
Yeah. It's kind of a thing. We gotta like tone it down. She's doing the dishes and just like, oh, I love her. She's singing, top high as loud as she can. God, it's glorious. Wow. When you're in there, and because that was my specialty, I work mostly with students, young academic coaching, mostly middle school and high school, and I saw it in this younger generation. I am in awe of them and their awareness. That there's just the level of awareness that young people have, and like I have so much hope for the future and where this is. I'd love to hear your take on it. I mean, you're working with young people. Like, what do you see as the difference in this generation that's different from others?
I think they're incredible. They have so much awareness, and they're also so aware of the world around them and their influence on that world. And I think there's a lot of bad things with social media, but I think I say it again, one of the good things is that it gives everybody a platform, and it gives everybody a chance to feel like they can have an influence, they can have a voice. So I feel like so many of it's mostly young girls that I work with, young teenage girls, and they all feel like they have the ability to do something that affects other people. And that's incredible. It's like their agency is so much higher, so they're willing to take these risks and accept these challenges because they think, why not? I could do that.
So true. I feel like there's a misconception too with this younger generation where it feels like, I think older generations have this idea that the younger generation is entitled and selfish and doesn't know how to work and doesn't do these things. And I feel like there's some elements of that for sure. Like, fine, there's definitely an entitlement piece, but there's also, I think, a fundamental shift from thinking from I to thinking more in terms of we that younger generations have, because there is just this connectivity. What are your thoughts on that? The shift from I to we?
I think it's great. It's about really being part of something.
Right.
And I think that was also the good thing with Black Lives Matter was this is the first time my generation and the generation below me is having something to fight for. Mm-hmm. Like having something that we actively have to fight for. And the approach is maybe different than it was early on in the civil rights movement. But it's so interesting. And it really is this, hey, we're going to do this. This is what we want. And it's awesome. Like, why not? So cool. We don't have to, you don't get extra points for doing it by yourself.
No.
If the job gets done, the job gets done. And people are realizing that together they can accomplish something. And I think it's great. I love it.
I do too. I see her in the way she's talking about things, and she's even schooling us on, different topics and things. It's the best. Like, I feel really hopeful for this next generation to take more ownership of the dialogue, and they're doing. The tools and sophistication they have is just really powerful. Social media does level the playing field in a lot of different ways if it's used well.
Yeah, and honestly, a little bit of entitlement is good because it forces people to have boundaries mm-hmm. and say what they will and will not accept.
Right.
And it also pushes them to start movements because they will not accept the current standard or the status quo, and so they're going to fight to change it.
Yeah, and the inequality. It's not just going from. If you're looking at what like even just financial inequality, the baby boomer generation, when they were younger, they controlled, was it 20% of the wealth when they were the millennial age, but now millennials only control 5% of the wealth. And there are some pretty significant consequences to when you start looking at, how generations share wealth. This younger generation, there is conditions for massive shifts, I think, in the U.S. Looking at this, and what you're what we're trying to do as coaching is revolutionize education. Revolutionize the way that young people are really getting into, learning more about kindness and empathy, and just also thinking about just in terms of historically, if you like historically. Nations that were able to, groups of people that were able to maintain a structure of communication and diversity, those are the civilizations that thrived. And that it's when civilizations stop doing that, they break apart. It just doesn't work. I know this feels like grandiose, like huge, epic, where things are playing out, but where do you see this playing out 10 years from now? Where do you see, where is this movement going? I guess is the question, more from a historical, taking a step back perspective.
I think we're giving the people the freedom to talk about things, talk about their feelings, talk about their emotions, what they're experiencing, their challenges, their strengths. We're just giving people the freedom to be honest and be vulnerable. And I think it's great. I think especially for men, because men often have felt that societal pressure of not sharing anything. And I think we're even getting away from that, which is awesome, because I know in terms of, this is a sad statistic, but in terms of the suicide rate, statistically, it's more men who commit suicide than women. And I think a big part of that is men not feeling like they're allowed to express emotions and be vulnerable. And I think we're going to get away from that.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, we have two older girls and two younger boys. And the younger boys, they have their older sisters to be like their guides. And they just, it's amazing to watch them, like they're like the two older girls' influence on our younger boys and the ideas of communication and kindness and all of it. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. There is even now in our culture, there's this idea of, oh, you're so tough. That's great. Good job, little guy. But there's not this, oh, you're so kind. That's amazing. Like that doesn't happen as often. Yeah, that's something we're actively trying to work towards, even on our micro level here. So Samantha, I got a couple of just coaching, like standard form questions. And then I realized we're running short on time. I'm like, oh no, I haven't got to any of these. Question one, standard one is, what was your favorite coach training exercise?
Ooh, I have like 3, but I think I'm going to say the future self exercise. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's just that visualization is so great. It really illuminates for people the possibilities of what they can achieve. And it's something that's so easy to just reconnect with on a whim or in a moment. And it really influences how you see a certain situation or what decision you're going to make.
If your future self were to come in, what would she say to you right now?
Ugh, I feel like she would come in with a slow clap. Yeah, my future self is she's very confident. She takes her time. She's got I don't know what to call it. It's not a sass. It's just kind of, it's like just a hint of, I don't know. She's just great. I like her.
Yeah.
I think it's wisdom. She's got wisdom.
What do you find when you get into that coaching space? Like, what do you find, like what characteristic or what do you shift into? You know what I'm saying? Like what mode did coach training like allow you to shift into more?
I try to write down before the session what I want to do, whether it's like, or what I'm excited about. So right. Sometimes I'll write, oh, I'm excited about the growth she's going to have today. Or I'm excited about watching her figure this out. Something like that. So then it's about what they're going to have and what they're going to experience, and just me kind of witnessing it.
Right. Yeah, I feel like my own sessions, I feel like there's a quieting of my own inner dialogue that I really look forward to, that it just can shut down and then be totally over there on the other side. I have a question that I heard this morning that I want to share. What was the moment when you stopped trying to be a coach and you just relaxed and let yourself be a coach?
I think I went from being a doer to a helper. So one of my practice clients, she was so great. We did maybe like 10 sessions or something. And I remember having a session where the doer in me was just like, okay, tell me everything that's going on. Okay, we're going to fix this. We're going to help you. And I left feeling like, wow, nailed it. And then the next time I thought, let's just let her figure this out. And I'm just going to be here to help her do whatever she needs to do. And I left thinking, I hope that was helpful, but I saw the growth in her much more than when I kind of just took control and decided this is what you need to do now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like such a huge shift happens when it's almost like you're not trying to solve the problem, like you almost want to make the problem worse, and so that insight occurs, it's even bigger. It's even more valuable than if you solve the problem in the first place, type of thing. All right, what advice would you have for someone just starting out their coach training?
Be open. Let yourself fail. Yeah, you're not going to get it right. Don't try to get it right. There's so much freedom in going, I don't know, but I'm here to learn.
Yeah, can we just have a clip for everyone starting out? Because we just talked about this for like an hour this morning, about how people are assessment allergic. A lot of people are, because we're trained in school. If you make a mistake, then you get graded, and that grade stays with you forever. It's on your transcript, kind of stuff. But in real life, it's all about being able to gather as much feedback as you can and incorporate it. If it's useful, gather and useful, figure out what's useful, not useful. I am in awe of people who can put themselves out there as publicly, as transparently as you, and do it, like thrive in that environment, not just, like flourish in that. It's such, how do you see yourself? Like, you know what I mean? Like and it's an odd question, but like just holding up a mirror just for a minute, like, how do you see yourself in this?
I'm just here to learn. One of my favorite words is photosynthesis. I say it way too much for somebody who is not a scientist and doesn't do anything related to flowers or plants or anything. But I love it because it's about blooming. And to me, I'm just a little baby seedling. I'm ready to bloom. And I'm just here figuring it out. And that's it. I think you just release the pressure when you say, I don't know, but I'm ready to learn, or give me feedback. I don't know, I haven't done this before. It just makes everything so much easier. It takes away the fear, because I have just established that I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to get it right, but I'm okay with that. It's way more fun.
That's awesome. I do love plants. I think it's one of my, as you can see, this is like a small collection of maybe 20 orchids I have around. Emily says I have to be careful not to be that weird orchid person, like the people you go and they have like, like plants in every room kind of thing. That's awesome. That's so awesome. I love that metaphor. How can we support you? How can the Coach Training EDU community support you in your work?
I'm just here to learn. So every time you guys post something or have a suggestion of a book or whatever, I love it, because I just want to take in all the information and just continue to learn and grow and get better. And yeah, I think it's so exciting. New ideas.
We're going to try to get as many people to contact the representatives. We'll throw that up on our blog and our social. What's the big win, in this next year? Like, what's the woohoo?
The big win would be standing next to the governor as he signs this into law, and just, I think I would cry. Just, we did it.
That's awesome. Well, we'll do what we can to help move it forward. And Samantha,
I'll send you the information once I have it.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll put it up on the blog, and we'll do what we can. I just feel really honored and humbled to have you part of our community and doing what you're doing as well, and want to support and be an ally in the work in ways that I can. I just thank you for doing what you do, and for contributing to this community as well. And so grateful to have you part of the CTEDU EDU community.
Thank you. It's been amazing. I just feel like I'm learning so much, and I really appreciate the environment of the community where we all can just come and learn and connect and grow together, like group photosynthesis.
It's like, it does. It definitely is an element of like where, people who are up to something gives other people permission to also step into that, to also be up to something. And there's a certain kind of energy that people who are doing their life's work, and there's another way I can explain it, like doing something that just makes a difference, that's meaningful. There's a certain kind of energy there that I just love. It just feels like there's a deep level of personal fulfillment, joy, even if the hardest stuff, there's still joy in that. There's more. I know there's more, but we have to wrap it up. We're getting to the end of our time. Samantha, again, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And hopefully we can have you again and celebrate once Hawaii recognizes Juneteenth.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, Samantha. Thanks, everyone, for being here, listening live. And for those listening on the cast, thank you again. This has been another episode of the Coaching to Flourish podcast.